We talked about wide versus deep, geographic versus the type of marketing you do. What do you think? So there's pros and cons to both. Going wide, again, maybe your conversion rate goes down, as you said, but maybe your sales go up. So what would be some pros of going wide?
So going wide?
Yeah.
You have the ability to hit more people.
Yep.
Right? You're going wider. You're just the sheer number of opportunities grows, and that could then invite in more sales, more opportunities, and then more relationships, more referrals.
Yep.
Off of that wide.
It almost feels bigger
approach. Yeah.
Feels like you got more opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Welcome to the podcast dedicated to real estate, insurance, and everything in between. Join us as we take you along our own brokerage building journeys with additional wisdom from our network of business experts. Welcome to Bricks and Risk. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Bricks and Risk. I am Tim Garrity.
And I'm Sean Mooney.
What's up, Sean?
What's up? What up?
And today, got a really cool topic. And it's funny, when I first mentioned this to Sean and said, here's what we're doing today, he was kind of like, in what sense?
Define that.
So this is kind of a broad topic. I've heard it a few different ways. You can construe it different ways. You can look at it different ways. But it's really in your approach to marketing. And the broad terms for your approach to marketing are, do you take your marketing wide or do you take your marketing deep? And I'll give you my own general perspective as to that. So if you're looking wide, let's talk about geographic. So That's a good way to define it. Mm-hmm. In real estate, a lot of times people talk about farming, having your own area that you dominate.
Farming, not agricultural farming.
Correct.
Okay.
Real estate farming.
All right.
Okay.
This is for the insurance people.
Yeah, exactly. So my real estate peeps out there obviously know what I'm talking about, but the insurance people are like, huh?
There you go.
And so let's talk about geographic. So in real estate, you're like, okay, who do I want to serve? Do I want to work with people all over Philadelphia? Do I want to work all the suburbs? Do I want to work in the city? Do I want to work South Jersey suburbs? Do I want to take it to the shore? That's one example. That's your wide approach. You're saying, hey, anything in and around this area, I'll go after. I don't care if I have to drive an hour and a half. I'm going to go for it. Or you can go deep. And going deep would be like, hey, here's a great example. I live in Flourtown now. I used to live in Philadelphia for a while. And in Flourtown, I could say like, hey, I'm just going to try and focus on people in and around Flourtown. There's thousands of them. Or maybe I'll say, hey, I want to focus on White Marsh Township, which is a way to look at it in Pennsylvania. Townships kind of, rule your area. It's like, that's your school district. That's your tax base, your park system, your library, whatever. So if I had to say wide versus deep, like what's your perspective on that for marketing?
Yeah. So when we first kind of like were kicking around ideas and talking about topics, it just took me back to starting my business.
There you go. Okay.
And in the first year, I'm like, I want to write everybody.
Yeah. Anyone that comes my way.
Whew, you do like hot air balloons. I want to insure you. You own a dynamite factory. I want to insure you. Yep. I mean, like that's your mentality. Uh-huh. So I think the newcomer, the new guy on the block, I think they're eager to go wide.
Yeah.
And
anything and everything.
Everything and anything. And I think what you find over time is it's counterproductive in a way. I mean, you can do that, right? You can cast a wide net and whoever comes through comes through, and it's just a numbers game,
Yep.
right? So like push it out to 1,000 and you get 100 contacts.
Yep.
And from there you get 25 calls and you sell, 15 accounts, so the wider the net, the more the numbers, and you just kind
more
of opportunity. And that's one way to go about it. Where I think it's counterproductive is you have to look at like how much time you're spending. We have, close ratio, right?
Okay, explain that.
So quote 50, you write 5 accounts.
Okay.
So how many
10%
are you
conversion kind of
conversion? How many are you converting? If you are casting a wide net to anyone and everyone, your conversion rate might be 2%.
Yep. I could see that.
Right. And so if you look at it as going deeper, right, you really have a target market that you're after, right? You know that your carriers, your companies are super hot in these zip codes.
Yeah.
And you just hit those areas, right? Because you know that you may only have to quote 20 to get 10, right?
Yeah. And now you're shooting 50%.
Right. So I think for us, it's really fine. The goal for us is really hitting a high conversion rate with our new business.
I like that. Yeah. And it's like the expression goes, it's, jack of all trades, master of none.
Yeah.
You're doing too many things. You're not really
There's a second part to that, by the way.
All right.
I don't know what it is.
Okay.
It's something along the lines of like master of none, but better than most.
Yeah. Oh, actually, yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, I think I am right.
I'm no philosophizer, but I do remember there being a second part to it. No, I appreciate that.
Brought that to mind.
Yeah. That's good.
But going back with real estate, like talk about how you guys are now or how you started out and where you kind of progressed to and where you're really honing in on where you're getting, new business and where you're marketing towards.
Yeah, I think there's a couple different ways to look at it from my perspective. I feel like a lot of people in real estate just follow methods. They'll be like, okay, you should be getting on the phone. There's a method to that. Warm calls or cold calls, it doesn't matter. Get on the phone. You should be sending out postcards because those postcards should say, hey, we have a listing. Like, do you want to sell? Or, hey, I just sold something. Do you want to sell? So then there's that. Then there's like video. Oh, I need to do more video. Video's hot right now, which is true. But it's like there's so many different ways to go about it. I think for us, when we first got in, we looked at it as like, let's take geography out of it. Let's just look at like your approach and being like smarter, more strategic. And you're looking at your approach. You're like, how do I want to approach this? So I think what we really looked at was like, first of all, what kind of transactions do we want to do? Do we want to focus more on buyers, sellers, renters? We looked at it as like, we want to do everything that you can do in residential real estate. So buy, sell, invest, and rent is what people say. Those are the 4. Because again, there are people in our network that want to do all those things. There's people who are buying their first home, family member, friend. There's people who are selling their third home, but then they want to go buy another one. So if we went too deep on that,
I think with you guys too, it's kind of the umbrella of real estate.
Yeah.
So like if I use Copper Hill, we buy a house, we did a great job, we love it. And someone comes to me and is like, oh, you just bought a house. Like, I'm buying an investment property. There's kind of that automatic thinking like, oh, who did you use? They'll be able to help me.
Yeah.
In terms of that transaction.
Yeah.
So I think people in general, the masses, just kind of assume
that,
oh, you do real estate, you're a realtor, you can help me because I want to do this.
Yeah. So really, it's funny. In the beginning, we were very focused on the city because we were in Center City. That's where we were for our first 8 years, basically. And we're like, look, we're kind of like young. We all live in the city. Like we're urban minded. We're just like, we're progressive. We're trying to do things, better, paperless and tech. Like it's all like city focused. It's like less traditional. It's more hip. It's more progressive. So it's like everything in the beginning was the city. So first couple of years, we were like real concentrated, like let's focus on the city.
And how is that done? When you intentionally do that, is that your marketing efforts?
Yeah.
Is that, if you're going to meet people that's going to be in the city,
Yeah.
you want to get connected with people in the city? Is that how it kind of?
Yeah. And again, for us with relationships, so it's like cultivating our relationships. We would tell the people we already knew, hey, we have a city focus. But again, if my cousin or a friend or someone said, I'm moving to the suburbs, of course I can help it.
Yeah.
I grew up in the suburbs,
Yep.
so I understand that market. But let's talk about the marketing. It's like being intentional with like networking. Were we going to suburban events or city events? We were going to city events.
Yeah.
Also where we lived. So like we were all in 3 different neighborhoods in the city, and we would all get involved in our neighborhoods. I was on the Roxborough Development Corporation for 10 years. That's a CDC, a community development corporation with more of a business mindset. But like, Andrew was doing like zoning in Fishtown because that's where he lived. And Ryan was doing, he's a huge basketball fan. He went to Providence College, even though he's from here. He would gather together like Providence basketball fans that just live in Philadelphia. Yeah, right. All 3 of them would literally get them together and do like a watch party.
Yeah.
And, he did like a LinkedIn group for that. So it's like everything we kind of did was like city focused.
Yep.
And then like as we grew, the net got a little wider. It got wider in the fact that we were growing with agents, and the agents focused on different neighborhoods. And then, with COVID and everything, with the changing of mindset, a lot of people that we knew, ourselves included, that were in the city, maybe we were always suburban bound at some point, but a lot of people left. And it was just that age bracket. It was maybe like that 35 to 45, 50 was just like, you either had a kid or kids, or like you had a pet or a couple pets, or you just got married. You're thinking about these things. Like everyone wanted space.
Yeah.
And where do you get space? You get space in the burbs.
Yep.
You get land, you get privacy, you get all that. And then we started doing more suburban business. But again, it was always through our network. But
are you just following? What that leads me to believe is maybe it wasn't intentional, but maybe that's where your centers of influence were going,
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
I imagine that like during COVID, a lot of your clients that lived in the city, that bought houses in the city are like, all right, let's look over here. Let's move out. Let's get some space. Let's get a yard, or let's get, close to, Valley Forge National Park,
Right.
or, any number of things. So then just by way of your community is moving and branching out, you're kind of then following where they're going.
Yeah. And it's like, so geographically, I feel like we got wider. But from a marketing perspective, I feel like we've always been deep. And here's why. We've always been focused on relationships. And even when I'm doing the Roxborough Development Corporation, I'm trying to go out and build more relationships. Like, one, I'm donating my time for the betterment of the community, because I feel like I got something to add. I have an MBA. I'm a business owner. I'm in real estate. I love this neighborhood. So like having all those things, I'm like, I feel like I can contribute to the neighborhood and provide value to its residents. But again, it was always back to relationships. Hey, maybe I meet 3 people on the board and I add them to my relationships, and then I continue my marketing approach. So my marketing approach was always deep in the fact that, take geography aside, it was always focused on our relationships. From a geographic standpoint, we just grew, and growing through our network allowed us to focus on more areas, growing with the agents. Hey, I live in Doylestown. Okay, I'm going to do some business up there. I live in Northeast Philadelphia. I have clients up there. So I do think, and it's like even today, when we've grown, so it's 9 years, just like you've been growing for 11 years, we still look at it as deep. And it's like, now I'm in a new geographic location. I'm in Flourtown, Pennsylvania. And now I'm starting to look at it as like, how do I build some influence? How do I get my name out in this area? So let's talk about this too. So we talked about wide versus deep, geographic versus the type of marketing you do. What do you think? So there's pros and cons to both. Going wide, again, maybe your conversion rate goes down, as you said, but maybe your sales go up. So what would be some pros of going wide?
So going wide?
Yeah.
You have the ability to hit more people.
Yep.
Right. You're going wider. You're just the sheer number of opportunities grows, and that could then invite in more sales, more opportunities, and then more relationships, more referrals.
Yep.
Off of that wide.
It almost feels bigger
approach. Yeah.
It feels like you got more opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that, I would say, that's the bonus of going in that direction. I think on the flip side,
yeah, give me the con of going wide.
I think that the con would be you're losing focus.
Agreed.
You're losing, so for us, it's a constant conversation in our office is like trying to identify our ideal client and who's our target market.
Uh-huh.
And we put such an emphasis on that because I think if you get dialed into that approach and knowing who your ideal client is, it becomes easier to find them. It's just better business for our brokerage. And we find that ideal clients are going to refer ideal clients.
Yep.
It's just the way it works.
Yeah, agreed.
And so
it's more like a snowball relationship effect.
Yeah. What we kind of say too is if your ideal client is family of 4 with 2 cars and a home and a vacation home, and they have some pieces of art that they insure, and you kind of draft this persona of who you're trying to market against. Mm-hmm. You can get very good at targeting that prospect.
Yep.
And also knowing if they're not the right fit.
Mm-hmm.
So your time, is better spent, and you become better at finding them and also building from that.
Yeah, you're almost more tactful in your approach.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we talked about the pros and cons of going wide.
And the other thing I will say in my industry is where we've kind of mostly talked about, home insurance, auto insurance. But when we talk about commercial insurance, the valuable nature of finding the niches or, a specific type of business that you want to go after, because you can line up your prospects, you can line up your carriers, because certain carriers have certain appetites. So some are going to be better than others.
Yeah, you almost know where to place it.
You know the coverages that this particular client's going to need. So it becomes very efficient in knowing the client, getting the coverage, and placing the coverage.
Okay.
So business insurance, that's kind of a must for most.
Hey everyone, this is Tim, your favorite Bricks and Risk co-host. But don't tell Sean. I hope you're enjoying this episode, and I'll get right back to it in a moment. Our audience grows through word of mouth, so if you would please take a moment of your time and give us a review on the platform you're on, that would be fantastic. Please also help spread the BNR word by sharing your favorite episode with a friend. We greatly appreciate your time and trust. Now, back to the show. Okay, I'll spit fire on that too. So, talking about going wide, I can give an example from when I got into real estate. So, and I've talked about this on another podcast. When I got into real estate, I was very big on creating a personal brand because otherwise I was just Tim Garrity Realtor. If I'm just Tim Garrity Realtor, I'm not different than anyone else with a real estate license. How do I differentiate myself? And I differentiated myself with a brand that was in the market I was focusing on, which was Philadelphia. So I was living in the city, at the time living in Roxborough, and I was very interested in development and redevelopment, new construction, brownfield sites, skyscrapers downtown, rehabs, multifamilies, all this stuff, loft apartments. It was very interesting to me. So like I found myself reading that section of the news every day. It was like Philly.com or blogs or whatever. And reading that all the time, I felt like I had like perspective on it and maybe like an opinion.
Yeah.
So then I started blogging. And then when I started blogging, this is what I was writing about. So I developed a personal brand called Philly Urban Living. The reason I decided to go wide with that brand, because again, I'm one man and I'm in an entire city of 1.5 million people. That's a lot of opportunity. This is back in like 2010, 2011. No one really had an individual personalized agent brand. I'm going to say no one. There's about 10 people that I could find that weren't like a team or a brokerage or something like that.
Before $1 million listing.
Exactly. So, and this is like even before like really like iPhones and, social media really got great and just think about all that. But like, so prior to this, these people had like a website or a landing page or something. And there were only like 10 other people. So I looked at it, I was like, look, I got a lot to add. I read the news. I want to start a blog. I want to create a personal brand. So then I called my blog Philly Urban Living. And then once I started blogging a lot, I'm like, I'm going to start sending out a monthly newsletter. And what I did is I would populate my newsletter with those blog posts. I'd pick, if I did 10 blog posts in a month, I'd pick the top 1 or 2 and put them in there and send it out. So then I started creating this personal brand, but it was more wide. And then as I grew and as an agent, and then we started Copper Hill. And when we started Copper Hill, everything changed. It's like, I can't be this wide agent anymore of just focusing on the city. Like we looked at it as like, okay, like as a company, how do we create our brand? And the brand was more relationship focused, customer service focused, paperless, using tech to our advantage, all these things that no one was doing. We were working out of a co-working space. That was forward thinking. So it was like, we're lean, but we're efficient. And so then we went like real deep into like, we need to focus on these relationships. We can't focus on the whole city. We'll still do stuff. We'll go out, we'll meet people. Like that's lead gen. So our lead gen, you got to be doing different things. So we were still doing a wider lead gen, but like our focus became the relationships. And that became because like Andrew, Ryan, and I were all practicing for years. We're like, where do our deals come from? Like if we did 30 deals last year, where did most of them come from? It came from people we knew. Referral. That was like what it was. Hey, friend of a friend, cousin of a friend, neighbor. This was my friend. And then that's how we started getting deeper in our approach. So I'd say that probably one of the biggest cons to wide, and also go through deep too, one of the biggest cons of wide is really back to that quote, is jack of all trades, master of none. Yeah, maybe your conversion rate goes down and you feel like you got this big ocean of opportunity ahead of you, but you're doing too many things. You're doing too many different kinds of deals. You're working with too many different kinds of people, too many different price points, like too many carriers. And I feel like when you're doing too much, you're not really going to get good at anything. And, from a deep perspective, like some of the negative of that is like you're growing too slow. Like maybe you're going too focused on relationships. Maybe you're not doing the networking, let's say. Maybe I'm doing a letter to my 100, 200, 300 people. I'm doing a pop-by gift. I'm doing a client event. I'm doing that newsletter, but only to them. And like, you're not really doing anything else that makes it better. Like when I was doing the RDC, the Roxborough Development Corporation, I'm like, look, that's lead gen because I'm just trying to add to my relationships. I'm really trying to go out, shake hands with people, tell them I got something to add. We're getting to know each other. I mean, that's how our development company started. We started through a relationship through that.
Would you say that when you're talking about the opposing two, would you say that one is more geared towards sustainability and long-term growth over the other? Or would you say that it could be either
Could
or?
be the opposite.
Yeah.
I would say, so I mentor agents. You know, we have almost 30 agents at the company, and I train them. And one of the things I talk about is burnout.
Yeah.
Because again, in sales, especially in real estate, you can get burnt out very, very easily. You're sending postcards, you're making cold calls. No. You just get too many no's, and then your income goes down. You feel like you're getting nowhere, and you get out. You know, that's why it has such a high rate of failure. 87% in their first 5 years or less will get out.
Really?
Because most of the time, because of burnout, it's just not sustainable. So I think when you get in, going wider helps you understand what you're good at. And then you start to get deeper. And then as you get into this, so you're 5, 10, I'm almost 15 years into real estate, being deep and more tactful with that approach is going to make it more sustainable because it becomes quality over quantity. If I'm treating my relationships like absolute gold, I mean, hey, I send them a handwritten note. I send them a magazine every quarter. I send them the newsletter. We just did the Copper Hill Annual. We had over 100 people there. I mean, I'm doing these things for my relationships. So that's very deep in that approach. Do I still do lead gen? Yeah. I mean, this podcast is lead gen.
Yeah.
We're putting information out there who knows who we're going to meet. But even when I meet someone, what's my number one goal is to go deep, is to create a relationship with them if I feel like it's worth it, and add them to my network. So I do believe that the most sustainable approach, in my opinion, as you get good at business, I'm sure this applies to real estate, and I'll let you speak on it as well, is really to go deep, because that is going to build the wealth. It's going to create the referrals. Referrals happen without you having a billboard.
Yeah. I mean, I even know insurance people that, prospects come in and they have like a lead sheet of how like to disqualify them.
Wow.
They're looking for reasons to find that they don't fit.
Yeah.
Because they're really just geared towards building. This is like very, I guess, cookie cutter-ish. This is who we want to deal with. This is the client. If they have this, we don't want them. If they do this, we don't want them. If they do this, we want them. And you become very good at finding. And I believe that it's a more, in our business, a more profitable way to grow your business. Profitable as well as long-term growth. Because like I referenced before, they're going to be referring, if you bring a bad client in that's bad performing, they have bad claims, they don't pay their bills, more than likely that person is going to be sending someone similar to them. So not only are you open the door to that person, quote unquote, a bad performing client, but then that's going to lead towards more people that are not your ideal client. And that's why we put such an emphasis on kind of drawing this persona and really having pretty frequent conversations about, who are we looking for? How do we market to find that person? What are the right carriers that fit to kind of build the coverage that prospect fits well with?
Yeah.
So it's on our end, it's a lot of time to develop that because we feel like and we're talking about deep, right?
Yep.
We're going like very detailed in terms of who we want as a client and the money spent on advertising and the marketing and the gearing towards referrals to bring more of those clients in. For us, I mean, we look at like that's where the gold is long term.
No, it's almost like you're trying to get good at saying no.
Yeah.
And that is deep because it's hard in the beginning. So again, you and I have been doing this for a while.
Yeah.
You do it for a while, you get good at it. You get confident, you have success, you have consistency. So you have all these things, but that takes time. It takes patience. Like you have to understand that you're running in a marathon. You're not doing a 40-yard dash. That's not what this is about. And I think the hardest thing about this, going deep, going sustainable, going long-term, it's a long game. You don't really get a lot of instant gratification.
No.
So we all buy stuff from Amazon. What?
I buy stuff from eBay.
Well, I know you
Has
do.
to be used.
Probably half your outfits from eBay right now.
My socks aren't from eBay.
Oh, I know you too well.
Yep.
But it's like, let's talk about that. Like you find something online, you're like, buy.
Yeah.
And it's so easy. And 2 days later, it comes. And it's just, that's the society we're in now. It's like social media. It's comparison culture. It's like, it's a highlight reel of the positive aspects of your life. Like everyone just wants to feel good, all the time, like instant gratification. But in business, if you want to survive, you want to grow smart and build that wealth, then that's really where getting good at saying no, understanding that deep is probably a better approach and being relationship focused. It's knowing who you want to work with and who you don't want to work with. Like, where are you spending your marketing dollars?
How hard is that? Like, I can only imagine you having someone come in and say, Tim, I want to be a real estate agent.
Yeah.
And you're fired up, right? You're like, oh, this guy's young.
Awesome. They came to me.
He's a hustler. He's eager. He's smart. He's got a good head on his shoulders. He's got a good network. He went to school over here. He's in an alumni group over here. And like the first conversation is going to be like, slow down.
Yeah.
I mean, talk through that. Like when that young, eager guy is piss and vinegar and you're like, whoa.
Take it easy.
One step at a time here. Like you've been through that. You've seen those types of candidates come forward. How do they take it? Like, can you give an example of like maybe someone who came in and you had to have that conversation with?
No, I've had lots of those conversations. I've said no to a lot of people that have come to Copper Hill and wanted to work. And not because I didn't see value in that person. It was just, it was like varying philosophies. So some people, again, like we talked in a previous episode about, getting rich versus being wealthy. Like a lot of these people, they want to just get rich.
Drive a Lamborghini.
Yeah. It's like, look, I want to make, they're like, come in, it's their first year. They're like, I want to make like $100,000 this year. And I'm like, well, how are we going to do that? And that person will say, well, I only have to do, 2 transactions a month. I'm like, do you know how hard it is to do 2 sales? So you're going to do 24 sales in a year, in your first year. Let's figure out how much volume we'd have to get. You figure out what your split is, and then you figure out what your income is. That takes time. And sometimes people say, well, I think I can do it because I saw someone else do it, or I watched something on YouTube, or I went to a seminar, or I watched a webinar, like whatever it is. What those people don't tell you is, what did they spend to get that?
Well, not only
income?
that, but it's that, how some people have that poster up in their office.
Yeah.
And it's the iceberg, and it's like the little cap on top of the ice, and then underneath is like this, like, and like, so like that's all the work that they put in that you don't see.
Right.
Oh, Jimmy, I know Jimmy, he did 30 transactions last year.
Yeah.
And like, little do you know that he made like 850 cold calls, or he was door knocking, 3 days a week. You don't see the work sometimes, and you just assume, oh, well, if he can do it,
Right.
I can do it.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's really, it's trying to set their expectations about the rate of failure, about, being emotionally, excited about getting into real estate. Look, you took your classes on your own. You paid for them.
Yeah.
You're here. Like, that all came from you. Like, no one did that for you. You did that. But you almost have to take it like it is. It's like I go out and show someone a home and they're emotionally charged. I'm like, this is a business transaction. We got to be careful. Like,
Tone it down.
I want you to be happy, and I want you to see your life ahead of you with this house. But if it's a lemon, we got to go find another. And I think with that new agent example that you get, and I'll end with this, that it's really just letting them know things take time in business. And if you talk to any of these people who are successful and knowing how much money they've made or how they did it, and you got all the details, the ones who have gotten really good at it have good quality of life, have, they make a good income, they have wealth, they have assets, and, maybe they have a family, don't have a family, it doesn't matter. But the number one thing is time. And I think as long as you can be patient and understand that business takes time to get good at it, I mean, you're going to find success no matter what. So that's all we have for this episode, everyone. So thank you for tuning in to another episode of Bricks and Risk. Take care. Thank you for joining us on another episode of Bricks and Risk. Our goal is that you walk away with 1 or 2 valuable nuggets, and we greatly appreciate you sharing your time with us today. You can find all BNR episodes on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, and anywhere else you get your podcast content. Until next time, keep learning and keep growing.